Today I'm going to show you guys how to perform the Tapcast steps. For reviewing it, we spent a full week doing it with the poem I Am a Rock, and then you were also supposed to have Tapcasted Still I Rise. But those Tapcast annotations were not quite what I was expecting, so I'm going back over how to Tapcast. So watch this video. As you're watching the video, I want you to practice these steps onto I2 Sing America along with me, so click on that PDF and make these same annotations that I'm making as I go through these steps. The first step is T. T stands for title, so this is where we read the title and we make a prediction about what we think the title tells us about the poem, what we think the poem will be about. So the title is I2 Sing America. So my prediction is that I think this poem will be about the speaker's positive experiences as an American, just like many others living at the same time, perhaps. Because it says that I too sing America, so he's not the only one experiencing whatever it is that he's talking about. I think it's positive because sing is a positive word. Usually, if you're singing something, there's some joy involved. So that's why I thought that it would be about him experiencing some sort of positivity in America. Now we're going to do the A step, which is the author step. This is where you would actually go to Google and you would search in Google the author and try to find where he was born, where he grew up, when he lived, what he wrote about, and any other pieces of important information. So Langston Hughes was born in 1902 and he died in 1967. So I'm going to write that. Author. 1902 to 1967. He's African American. Born in, let's see. He was born in Missouri, but it looks like he eventually moved to New York when he started writing poetry. Actually moved to Harlem, New York. So this makes him Harlem Renaissance writer. And during this period of time, a lot of African Americans found their voice in art, all sorts of different art and writing and music. And we call this the Harlem Renaissance time, when African Americans started making a name for themselves as artists in different ways. So he was one of those Harlem Renaissance writers. Let's see what else we can find about him. It also says, let's see, that he's primarily known for his insightful portrayals of black life in America from the 20s to the 60s. Known for portraying black life in America from 20s to 60s. So now if we have any background knowledge about this time period, we know that even though African Americans were free from slavery by this point, it was in the 1860s that the Civil War happened, that even though they were free from slavery, they are not free from discrimination and segregation, and many of them still worked for very little in the homes of white Americans, even though it wasn't necessarily slavery. So now I'm already thinking that perhaps my prediction was a little off, that maybe it's more about some of the negative experiences he's had as an African American living in a white America. So that's what you do for the author step. And now for the P step, we need to paraphrase all these groups of lines. So there's repetition in the beginning and the end, and then we have 3 stanzas in between that. So I too sing America. Don't exactly understand what this means yet, but I'm going to try my best to try and understand it. So I am also a part of America, perhaps. That's what he might be saying. I am the darker brother. They send me to... Actually, we should have read this poem before we even did the paraphrase step, after we did the author step. So I'm going to go ahead and read it, and then we can try to paraphrase it. I Too Sing America by Langston Hughes. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen. Then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I, too, am America. The white people in my home tell me to go to be separate from them in the kitchen where the work is done. Right? So that's kind of what he's saying. And then he says, when company comes, this is what happens, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. But I don't let their discrimination bother me. Okay? So that's kind of what he's saying here. That he doesn't let this discrimination, he says he's the darker brother, he doesn't let them, who are the white people, bother him, even though they tell him to go away from their table. All right. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. So, in the future, I will be equal with everyone else, and no one can tell me otherwise. Someday, he's hoping that this will be true. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. White people will appreciate me and my people someday and feel bad about how they treated us. Alright, trying to paraphrase here. And then he repeats, I am also a part of this free country. We got to think of what America represents. Now, I did this pretty easily because I've read this poem a whole bunch of times, but just know during this step that it's okay if you don't get it exactly right. You're just trying to figure it out. So you might change your paraphrase later after you're done breaking down the figurative language and everything that goes along with it. So now that we've completed the paraphrase step, which is the longest step, we're going to do the C step, the connotation step. This is where we look at the words that have positive or negative feelings associated with them. So I'm going to start here. I like to change my color whenever I'm making these different steps just to show that I'm on to a different step. So for the first line, I too sing America. Sing is a pretty positive word, as far as I can tell. So I'm going to put a plus sign there. America is usually spoken about positively, not always because there's a lot of injustice in this country, but I'm going to go ahead and say here, he's singing America, so I'm thinking he means positive here. Usually darker is something negative here, but all he's doing is pointing out the color of his skin, so I don't really think darker has a connotation in this sentence. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes. Okay, so this whole idea here is kind of negative. It's got a negative connotation. But these words, I laugh, and I eat well, and I grow strong, all of those have pretty positive connotations. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. So he's got kind of a confident feeling here. I'd say tomorrow can often represent the future, which can often represent better times in poetry. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am, and they'll be ashamed. I, too, am America. Okay, so we pointed out some of these words that have some negative and positive connotations. Now we're going to move to the attitude step, which is just determining what the tone of the work is. Remember, the tone is the attitude that the author has towards whatever it is they're writing. So we got to figure out what the subject is. I'm going to do the tone step right up here. Okay, so I think the subject of the poem is Black Americans. Subject: Black Americans living in a white-dominated country. So that's kind of what he's talking about, right? And he's talking about himself and how he feels. So that's his subject. And he's also talking about how whites will discriminate against blacks. And now we've got to ask ourselves, how does he feel about this? And I could, what if I was in this situation? If someone was discriminating against me because of the color of my skin, I might be really bitter and upset and angry and want to hurt the people who are doing this to me. But in this poem, that's not what he's focusing on. It's mostly positive. If we look at all these positive signs that we put during the connotation step. So what you want to do is go to your resource guide and look at the tone list. Go to Pages, Class Resources, in this resource guide. And let's scroll down to the tone list. So now we're looking at the positive tone words. I'm going to say that he feels very confident. Okay, he's being bold, he's being certain, and I'd also say that he's being, cheerful, because he's very hopeful for the future. So then I'm going to say here, tone is hopeful, is confident that things will change, and cheerful because he is hopeful for better times. Okay. Now for the shift step, this is where you try to find shifts in tone. For this poem, it's all pretty positive, except here, I'd say this is all negative, right? So there might be a shift here. Oops. Shift. But then it shifts right back. From positive to negative, then it shifts right back because he's talking about what the whites would do to them. That's pretty negative, and he doesn't feel great about that, right? He doesn't like that he's being discriminated against. But then most of this poem is his response to them, just pleading and saying that I too am a part of this beautiful country just like anyone else, and I should be treated as such. All right, now that we've done the shift step, we need to do the tool step. This is one of the longer steps, so we need to find all of the possible figurative language here. So I too sing America. Can you actually sing a country? No, there's something figurative here. So I also think that America, I'm going to do this on the bottom, is a symbol. So I'm going to talk about that. He is the darker brother. They actually sent him in the kitchen, but I'm thinking this kitchen is a symbol of a bigger idea. But I laugh and eat well and grow strong. That's all true. Tomorrow is a symbol here. I'll be at the table. It's another symbol. When company comes. Nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen. So even this whole idea of eating in the kitchen is a metaphor. And then he says here that I too am America, which is a metaphor. So we don't want to just underline it, we want to talk about it. So I too sing America. This is hyperbole. Let's put it in purple handwriting. He is exaggerating how he also participates in the country, or how he also is a part of the country. All right, and then we have kitchen. Kitchen is a symbol for separation and discrimination by the whites, right? And then we have tomorrow. Tomorrow is a symbol representing the future of all Black Americans, hopefully more positive. Okay, and then the table. Table is a symbol for unity amongst all races. And he has this metaphor of the kitchen again. Metaphor comparing being told to go to the kitchen to separating, or I'll just say to segregation of white Americans towards blacks.
Segregation. Segregation.
Did not mean to do that. Trying to fix my spelling here. Metaphor. Okay. And then we also have I too am America, which I kind of already analyzed that when I was paraphrasing, but this is a metaphor saying that he is also equal and should be free just like the rest of Americans. All right? Because America is this symbol that pops up over and over again in this poem. America is a symbol for freedom and equality, right? So what he's saying is he should also be free and equal, just like everybody else. All right, so that was the tools step. You try to find as many tools as you possibly can. I probably missed some here. Actually, we have some imagery. Yeah, and then you would also look for sound devices to see if there's any assonance, consonants, or alliteration, which I don't think I am seeing any. Oh, here we go. Company comes. That's alliteration, emphasizing how when other people are brought to a household, African Americans are always told to leave. I laugh, I eat well, and I grow strong. There's not really any rhyme scheme here. Here we go, we have company comes again. He's really emphasizing that. And we also have repetition right here, right, emphasizing that that's the main point of the poem. All right, there's probably more I could mark, but for sake of time, I won't do that. So now we're going to do the last step, the T step, and T stands for theme and thematic statement. So I'm just going to open a box on the bottom of this paper here. Okay, theme. There's a lot of different themes that I could say, but since he's talking specifically about race, say race relations. And thematic statement could be that all people should be treated equally in America, despite the color of one's skin. I could also talk about hope and hopelessness, how he has this hope for a better future for himself and for the rest of his race, but we'll stick with that. So the theme is one of those 30 theme lists, which I probably should have brought you to that in the resource guide. It's page, let's see, I think 4 or 5 right here. So I found race relations. And then the thematic statement is the lesson about the theme as seen in the text. So that is how you do the TAPCAST steps. Let me know if you have any questions.